Hello and welcome to the Pulpit Fiction Podcast, the lectionary podcast for preachers, seekers, and Bible geeks. This is episode 654 for Epiphany, which is January 6th, 2026, or Epiphany Sunday, which is January 4th, 2026, whichever you are looking for. Now, if you are looking at Christmas 2A, then that is going to be the prelude to John, in which case go back and check out our Christmas Eve episode in which we talk about John 1. But if you're here for Epiphany, we're going to talk about Matthew 2, 1 through 12, the visit and gifts of the Magi. We're also going to talk about Isaiah 60, 1 through 6, arise and shine, your light has come. And we'll have a little wafer on Ephesians 3, 1 through 12 on Jesus' secret plan. I'm Eric Fistler, UCC pastor out here on the shining shores of Crystal Lake. And with me, as always, the marvelous Methodist in Rock Island, Illinois. It's Robb McCoy. What's happening, Robb?
We are way ahead of time here. We are recording December 17th. We're live on YouTube. So if you're listening on your podcast player, we recorded this a long time ago. And just a reminder, you can watch us live on Wednesdays. And if you give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube, that would be very helpful. We'd really appreciate it. But so that's one of those things when we're recording this far ahead of time, this time of year, there's a lot of traveling, a lot of, we want to be able to, we're trying to plan things out and just make sure we've got you covered. Epiphany every year, it's the same readings every year. And so I feel like every time of year this time, like, do we want to record another Epiphany episode? We look back, we haven't done one since 2022. It's been 4 years. That's time to do another one, I guess. The texts haven't changed, but as I say, it's the living word. We have changed, our contexts have changed. Maybe we'll see something new. We never listen to an old show before we record a new one, so we could be super repetitive here. You never know. But if you don't like what we said today, you can go back to 2022, or you can go back to 2019. Or you can go back to 2016. This is the fourth, I think, time that we've done this. But yeah, and so we gain insights over the years. Epiphany, are you preaching Epiphany this year?
I am. Yeah, I am. It's, we kind of jump back and forth. I'm doing Sanctified Art because Sanctified Art's great. And I liked using their stuff this year. So they're doing an Epiphany. They don't always, but they did this year. So, but I, similar to us, Robb, I haven't preached Epiphany. It's probably been 3 or 4 years because of other things that we've been doing. So I'm excited to dip back into it. Honestly, I think the last time I did Epiphany was the last year that I did the narrative lectionary, because the narrative lectionary is still the Epiphany reading on right around that same time. So we're talking maybe pre-COVID. So I'm excited. I think it's important. It is the story of the visit of the Magi is so big in just the collective imagination, especially, I would say, of our generation, Robb. I'm not sure how much it is for our kids' generation, but for our generation, I've shared this before in the show. My wife, Nina, recorded 1987, 88, all of the Christmas specials, VHS, and recorded them off the television. I think it was 3 VHS tapes full.
Wow.
So we're talking like right around 10 hours, right? At different speeds. And we have since converted this all over, and we watch this every year. And one of the things that astounds me is the vast majority of those Christmas specials, and it's things Garfield Christmas and Charlie Brown Christmas and The Grinch and all sorts of different things. And they had do you remember the show The Dinosaurs? It was a claymation show that was a big thing in the 80s when claymation was like huge in the late 80s. Anyway, there's a claymation Christmas special. For those of you out there who are hearing this, you know what I'm talking about. It's a very specific thing. Anyway, they're all so Christocentric and they are so Jesus heavy. And for me, I can remember there's one of them singing on CBS or whatever, broadcast television, We Three Kings, with claymation kings and claymation camels, and the camels had mustaches. It was a whole thing. Anyway, it's just there in the collective consciousness of our generation. I'm not sure we've passed that down because we don't have that same kind of collective consciousness. I'm not sure we have that anymore. but it's still a powerful story, and it's a weird story, and it's different. So yeah, I dig it. I'm excited to dig into it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead. It's Matthew 2, verses 1 through 12. And like we talked about in last episode, we're rewinding. If you did Christmas 1a, we read Matthew 2, 13 and forward. So this is the prelude to that. So there's the great, the murder of the innocents and the flight to Egypt. Well, this is what came before. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in the territory of Judea during the rule of King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem. They asked, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We've seen a star in the east, and we've come to honor him." When King Herod heard this, he was troubled, and everyone in Jerusalem was troubled with him. He gathered all the chief priests and the legal experts and asked them where the Christ was to be born. They said, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what the prophet wrote. You Bethlehem, land of Judah, by no means are you the least among the rulers of Judah, because from you will come one who governs, who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and found out from them that the time when the star had first appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search carefully for the child. When you found him, report to me, so that I too may go and honor him." When they heard the king, they went, and look, the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with Mary, his mother. Falling to their knees, they honored him. Then they opened their treasure chests and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Because they were warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they went back to their country by another route. Oh, yeah.
Very few comparatively know what is the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Good news, everyone.
I had to have our good news, everybody. All right, so
Sorry,
this is good news. This is the happy half. Last week we had the sad half. Now we have the happy half. Before we dig into the text, which we're going to dig into in a minute, it's interesting the way we approach this holiday. So first of all, it's interesting to just look at Epiphany, Rob. So Epiphany, coming from epiphaneia, which means the Greek, which means to manifest or to appear. And it's interesting because Epiphany was the second most holy day in the Christian calendar, just to start off. We had Easter. Easter's number one, and then it was Epiphany. Christmas actually doesn't come about until way later, but Epiphany was a really big deal, and it was the manifestation. And I've thought about this, Rob. Why Epiphany? And I honestly think this is a weird thing, but I think it's the part of this story that is most overlooked, which is the cosmos proclaiming the birth. This is a big deal, right? This is the appearance of this star where he says, "Whereas we've seen his star in the east and we have come." And this is not a new thing. A lot of famous kings and holy people and demigods and things, their birth was lauded by stars and things like that. I'm pretty sure there was a star in the sky supposedly when Caesar Augustus was born and stuff like that. But there is something important, I think, Rob, about the fact that all of creation, it's not just, I mean, we are so homocentric. And by that, I mean, like, we're so focused on people that people, we are the most important thing. And everything else, we can destroy the earth and it doesn't matter as long as people are happy. We can subjugate millions of animals to most horrific conditions to just feed our hamburger and chicken nugget cravings, right? We can do those things because we're homocentric. But I think that there's something powerful in this epiphany and the manifestation of the star that moves it out of the human sphere, ironically, at the same time that God is entering into it. But God is, as God is coming manifest, there's something that connects the incarnation in Jesus Christ to all of creation and beyond creation, really into the cosmos. So the only reason I bring that up, Rob, is before we dip too much into it, you could also, we're going to talk about the kings, we're going to talk about Herod, we're going to talk about that, but I think you could preach a really cool Epiphany sermon on the God of cosmos. and what does that look like? And what does it look like for a God who is in the midst of all the cosmos, of all of the worlds that ever were and ever are and ever will be? And that same God of such a vastness is also came to earth, vulnerable as a baby, to be with you. I think something really cool could happen there.
Yeah, I mean, and I think in another aspect of it, we've sort of harnessed the stars, right? We understand the stars differently, intellectually harness them in the sense of they don't have the same kind of awe and wonder that they used to, right? There's a sort of there was an understanding that the stars were signs, that they told things, and they manifested things, and we don't really, most people don't really believe that anymore, right? We understand them as big balls of hydrogen and helium and all that kind of stuff. And yet, the more we learn about them, the more fascinating they are. I think in a way, they're even more mystical and magical and amazing than when we did think they were more, tied to destiny and these kinds of things. Because the idea of we being and this we bring up every Ash Wednesday, right? We're created by the same stuff that is exploding stars. Carl Sagan talked about, and yeah, I mean, claiming the wonder of the season, the star word, right? And how can that guide you? And this is a tradition that we've picked up on the last couple of years. I think I forgot it one year, then we did it again one year. We've kind of done it off and on. The idea of the star words being something to guide us, something that can, draw it randomly and let the Spirit lead you. And it's a whole bunch of words in the pile, and there can be, wide variety of things. And I think Sanctified Art the last few years has made this a part of their packages. I don't know if it did this year or not. But then you take one of the star words and you kind of use that as a guide for the rest of the year, or sort of, put it someplace where you're going to see it. And I remember one year that I did this, the word embrace was on my pulpit for the entire year. And
Cool.
that was pretty cool, right? Like this idea of, so there's a wonder there, and not necessarily of the cosmos, but also of the sort of the mystery of just being left open to, things guiding you and shaping you, and allowing the Spirit, right, to move and to guide. I think it is a powerful thing that we have lost in a lot of ways, because we have become so intellectualized and analytical and all of this stuff.
Yeah, I think in what you're saying, there's this aspect of mystery.
Right.
There are things that are beyond us. There are things that we are constantly being pushed to embrace. I like that idea of the mystery of it. And there are things, even not to push God into the God of the gaps, but there are things that I firmly believe that we will never understand. We will never be able to fully grasp and hold close to. So now that we have talked about embracing mystery, Rob, now we've talked about how great and amazing the star is and all of that, and the star words and all those pieces. Let's dig into what we do know, which is how much we don't know of this story, or rather how much we add to this story in ways that are 100% not biblical. But this is a classic case of we know the story, but actually don't know the story. And if it wasn't the last time I preached sermons on this, where even before reading the scripture, just do a little bit of like, hey, let's make sure we all know the story, right? How many kings were there at the birth of Jesus?
Well, 0 or 1, Jesus, 0, because they're not kings.
Right.
They're Magi.
So number one, weren't kings. Okay, Magi. How many Magi were they? We don't know.
More than one.
Doesn't say.
There's 3
What
gifts.
were their names? Yeah. We don't know. Doesn't say. Where are they from? The East? Like that's I'm just going to say right now, Rob, the East is so large, it literally is the rest of the world. But whatever, the East.
Well, and this always bugged me too, is they're from the East, and they saw the star in the East.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that have taken them farther away? Shouldn't they have seen the star in the West?
it's a textual thing. The question is, did they see the star when they themselves were in the east and saw the star? Yeah, I brought this up a while ago. I'm still think that there's something wonky here.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but then again, if you go east far enough, Rob,
You will.
eventually you will be west.
Yeah. True.
It is
Three
to
right
say,
turns makes a left.
there's so many things about this passage that people think that they know. And they're used to the usual questions like, what are the names of the three kings that come to visit Jesus? Melchior and Gaspar and Balthazar. That all comes literally hundreds of years after the birth of Jesus. And there's so much deep and thick mythology about this. One is that they were the descendants of the great kings of the nations at the time, that Melchior was the king of Persia, and Gaspar was the king of India, and Balthazar was the king of Arabia. But I've also heard that one of them was the king of Ethiopia and things like that. Now, how Ethiopia is in any way east, whatever. They're the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, which, by the way, just don't. Like, there's so many weird, gross, racist ideologies. Don't. And if you're wondering why, go read Stand from the Beginning and then come back and we'll talk. It's just that whole idea of like the curse of Ham and 400 years more of that. So it's just interesting, Rob. We have all these different things. And really it's a simple story. So the reason I bring all of this up is to say it's fascinating how people are enthralled by this story. I don't think you need to necessarily gut people's ideas. And if you do so in a fun, inviting way, not in a, look, you guys don't read your Bible way. However,
well,
right.
And I think the best story that explains these three guys is Christopher Moore's Biff, or Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff. It is, I love that book. It's, and in it, teenage Jesus and his best friend Biff go and find these three men that visited him. And it's a fascinating story, and it's touching, and it's irreverent, but it's also very poignant and deep in a lot of places. And one of my absolute favorite all-time novels for sure is that.
I gotta reread that. It's so good. It's so good. I haven't read it in a while, but I would say go back to the text. Like, just go and say, like, when we're preaching of it, don't preach everything we've added to it, unless you're intentionally talking about why it's important that the myth was added and the embellishment was added to it. I always think it's helpful, and part of our job as we are reintroducing people to the actual text to let them know what does it actually say. And most of the time what these were is they were probably Zoroastrian priests who were looking into the sky. Zoroastrians had tied deeply to the astrological signs, and most likely saw that. And that's why they were looking for the star, and they were following the star to try to find out what this extraordinary thing is. And at the end of the day, Rob, the question is, what's more extraordinary? Is it more extraordinary to have these kings come, or is it more extraordinary to have three weirdos? Let's be honest. These are weirdos. They're Magi. They're not us. That's what these guys are. They're not us. And they don't have to be kings. I feel like when we make them kings, it gives Jesus celebrity status. Hey, Jesus was born, and then, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and Caleb Williams all went and brought him gifts of whatever, rhinestones and pigskins. It gives them this higher status, as opposed to, here are three weirdos, three others that are, all we know about them, they ain't from around here. Number one, they're Magi, so they're not Jews, so they're not long lost Jews. They're just three weirdos who came, and yet whatever's happening here isn't just about us. And it's not just about us and the Samaritans. It's about way beyond us, which kind of brings us back to that cosmological view that we talked about with the star.
Yeah, I mean, they're Gentiles, they're Magi. The root is a magician, right? I mean, the magicians showed up. It's the same root, I should say. and their wisdom is they're foreign. And they bring these gifts, and a lot has been made of there's been almost as much made of the gifts, right,
For
as
sure.
the men that brought them or the people that brought them. Um, Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And there's some traditional symbolism there, right? Of gold is the present for a king and the riches, and frankincense is the gift for a priest and the temple and ritualistic and these kinds of things. And then the myrrh is an ointment for death, right? For anointing the one who would be crucified. And that's all true. And that symbolism, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. But one thing I bring up, whenever I preach this, is that these are also incredible. And people make fun of these things, right? There's a lot of memes about, oh, thanks for the incense and oil. Like, thanks, guys. No, but these are deeply practical, right? And these are gifts that would have been practical, not for Jesus, but especially for Mary. The frankincense and myrrh in particular, myrrh is still used by some as a ointment, as a healing ointment, as an essential oil that is for healing, especially postpartum wounds. Frankincense, the idea of it is to be able to breathe in and calm anxiety and calm nerves, and clearly a birth, or even not just if not a birth, then postpartum anxiety is a very real thing. So these gifts, they have a spiritual and symbolic element, but they can also have an incredibly practical maternal value as well. And I think that's one thing, Matthew, erases Mary in so many ways, right? Luke is the one that gives Mary voice and has Mary with Elizabeth, and Matthew is all about the angels and Joseph. But in this aspect, I feel like these gifts are much more about Mary and her body and what she needed, and especially, and them as a family, what they would need to flee, right? What that would take, which we covered more last week. But I think these gifts, I think, are really important as well, and to drill down into what they are more practically and what they are in the text, more so than the symbolic legends about them.
Yeah, I think that piece, especially that you said, and you've written about this, not only that the gifts are helpful, but you had a blog article some years ago that talked about the miracle that Mary survived. Too often we forget in the Western world, and as men, to be honest, how terrifying childbirth is, how risky it is. And for areas, still too many areas in the world, and for the vast majority of humankind, how deadly it is. So many children, so many women have died. Robb, you've done some amazing work. I know you and Katie Zay did some incredible work about maternal health over the years. And so that's such a powerful message that can be brought at this time. And okay. This is why we give gifts, Robb. Let's be real clear. We don't give gifts at Christmas time because of Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
We used to give Epiphany gifts because of the Magi. And then later, as Christmas kind of took over and dominated, those shifted more to Christmas gifts. But the gifts originated here. This idea of gifts. What does it look like that our gifts were literally the basic essentials needed for healing the least of these? It draws me back to Christmas Is Not Your Birthday, Mike Slaughter's book, which you could also say Epiphany isn't, but most people don't give gifts at Epiphany unless you live in Spain and certain areas where they celebrate the Day of the Kings, Dia de Reyes. And so, which is still a big deal, obviously, in Spain and I think some other places too. What does it look like if this is what informed our gift giving? Honestly, I think most of our gift giving, Robb, just from an economic standpoint, is way closer to how people make fun of this. The amount of money that I want to be real clear is wasted during the Christmas season is staggering.
Mm-hmm.
Staggering, Rob. And by wasted, I mean the millions of dollars that are spent on unwanted gifts.
Yeah.
The irony, of course, is we get people millions of dollars of unwanted gifts without actually using those millions of dollars to help our neighbors who need the most basic things to survive. So, number one, I think that you could, and do that. A good preacher is going to do that in a way that's inviting, that
Sure.
invites people into thinking of it differently, not in like a terrible. I mean, let's be clear. I'm also buying people unwanted gifts and all those sorts of things. It's just is part of the clash of culture and religion. So you have those aspects. So, it's not a do what I do. I figured it out. But I do think that idea of the miracle offering, that idea of what can we do to give beyond the hyper consumerism of this time, but do something which is life-giving, as these gifts actually were. They weren't the unwanted, oh, thanks, myrrh and frankincense, but actually were exactly what was needed. And as we saw last week, life-giving. They would not have been able to survive the wrath of Herod had they not had supposedly these gifts.
Yeah.
On the other side of this too, Rob, which we didn't talk about last week. So I don't know how much that you've been looking for in seeing the multiple women who have lost their children in the midst of detention at ICE facilities, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I think that the ACLU has talked about pregnant and postpartum women facing this neglect and abuse. You can look more into that. There's a lot of stuff. Physicians for Human Rights talk about this. Many others have written different articles about this. I don't think that is an unfaithful connection to make when we talk about the brutalities of empire, which, as we saw this, how the story ends next week, we don't have to look far to see those same brutalities happening in our backyards.
Yeah. Or, I mean, that or the lack of support that women get, the lack of maternal leave, the lack of paternal leave, right? Like, the lack of support to give women a chance to stay home with the exorbitant cost of childcare. How many women have to go right back to work so quickly? There's so many justice issues that you can come to with womanhood and motherhood in particular, that
they would have fled to Egypt, but sorry, Joseph had to go back to work as a carpenter.
Yeah, right.
He only had 2
couldn't
days
leave
off.
his job. The union wouldn't let him. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. It's just
That's a good point.
and the administration that is cutting, on Epiphany Sunday, people will have been about 4 days without health care, most likely, right? As so many of the health care benefits and refunds, that's not the right word, are going to be cut, and people are not going to be able to afford their health care under Obamacare anymore. Right? How many people are not going to be able to care for themselves because of these policies? And is it a stretch to see the gifts of the Magi to Jesus, and the way that we give gifts and the way that we ignore people who are hurting? I don't think it is, right? I mean, and that's part of what the Epiphany means, to see the light, right? I mean, we're gonna to have God revealed, to see injustice revealed, to see struggle revealed, because the darkness, people succeed under dark, oppression thrives under darkness, but Epiphany sheds light on things. And no, I think this is a connection that needs to be made these days.
Right. Well, and to steal from the other passage for today, the second Christmas 2a, the prologue to John, a light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. So to enter that by shining light, by revealing those pieces. And we got to move on here to Isaiah 60, but I'll end with this. This is also the first Sunday of the month. So a lot of churches, if you're not doing weekly communion, this is a communion Sunday. And as we reflect on gifts, as we reflect on life-giving gifts, we come to the table to receive the gifts of grace. We come to the table to receive the broken body, to receive the cup of blessing. And we can do a lot with that as well, and tying what are the gifts that we receive at the communion table as we break bread together, as Christ is taste and see the goodness of God, as Christ is felt within our midst, with the collection of weirdos that we are as the church. What does that grace in that celebration, and those that are willing to be together, break bread, share gifts, proclaim the good news with eyes wide open to the darkness around them, and then carry that light out into the world in powerful ways. So I think more can be done there for those of you that are celebrating like I am. That's a Communion Sunday for us. But for now, let's turn to our next passage today.
Previously on the Bible.
Ruth, I smell Heaven's bakery cooking up something good for you, sister.
All right. Well, our next passage is Isaiah 60, 1 through 6. This is the Common English Bible. Arise, shine, your light has come, and the Lord's glory is shone upon you. Though darkness covers the earth and gloom the nations, the Lord will shine upon you. God's glory will appear over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to your dawning radiance. Lift your eyes and look around. They are all gathered. They have come to you. Your sons will come from far away, and your daughters on caregivers' hips. You will see and be radiant. Your hearts will tremble and open wide, because the sea's abundance will be turned over to you. The nation's wealth will come to you. Countless camels will cover your land, young camels from Midian and Ephah. They will come from Sheba carrying gold and incense, proclaiming the Lord's praises.
All right, so there's obvious connections here, right? Everything that we've just talking about. The light has come, the light is shining, the nations will come. Here's the kings. If you really want to focus on the three kings, well, here you go. The kings will come. The kings of the nations will all come. Will come to your dawning radiance. So this is, as often as the case through the Advent Epiphany series, the Isaiah texts they're wonderful and they're poetic and they're beautiful, but they're not, they're taking them out of context. All right, this isn't talking about Magi showing up in Bethlehem, and yet it kind of is, right? I mean, that's the whole point, right? We can look at this and say, yes, this is, the Magi, that these people from the nations, there's a universalism here that is God's presence with Israel, with Jerusalem, that it was a particular people, but all along, the reason God had loved Israel was to be a blessing to the nations, right? Like Abraham was chosen so that all the families of the world could be blessed. Abraham would be made a great nation, so that all the nations of the world would be blessed. It was through the people that all the world. It wasn't I'm going to pick you, and you're going to be lifted up, and you're going to be. I'm going to make you great, and everyone else is just asshole, right? No, this is the rising of all. A rising sea lifts all ships, right? And this is when we can look back and say, yes, this is fulfilled in Jesus, in the sense that everyone now is invited to this peace, to this glory, to this generosity, to this abundance. It's not an abundance for some and not for others. It really is an invitation to all. And so this is a beautiful text, and there's a reason why it's Epiphany, because it reveals God's ultimate plan for everyone, not just those who claim a certain passport or birthright.
Yeah, I love the fact that this is about a new dawn, which I think is really beautiful in this. This idea that when the dawn comes, Rob, who benefits? Everyone.
Yeah.
The dawn is not discriminating. And I love that Robert Alter talks about that and says, actually, instead of it saying shine, it should say dawning, right? That this is the dawning, that this is, we have been through immense darkness. And yes, are there issues with dualism? Absolutely there are. But also the imagery is something that everyone can relate to. Rob, I hate the fact we were talking about it and we're recording this on the 17th of December. And I know that right now it is almost 40 degrees outside here in the suburbs of Chicago. And that means that by Friday and definitely by Christmas Eve, all my snow is going to be gone. That being said, it was really nice to walk outside in the sun today.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, and for those of you who, like me, suffer from that seasonal effect, right? That depressive effect of the darkness. That's just something within ourselves. There is something built in, biologically innate within us and most living creatures, not all, but many, that resonate with the light and the heat and the sun and the joy of a new day and the joy of a new dawn. And so what does that look like to celebrate that sun? And on Epiphany, as we celebrate, we talked about the cosmos and the star, like that, as you said, the sun is so, it is a radical blessing to everyone. We hear this, the rain and the sun shine on the good and the ill alike, the faithful and the unfaithful. So there is this beautiful leveling as we have this idea of a dawn is coming, a new day is coming. And this Trito Isaiah, this third Isaiah, this post-exilic Isaiah, they have a hope for something that isn't there yet. They can just see. When my son wakes up now and we're eating breakfast, my oldest, it's always before the sunrise, and we can just see everything lighten, and we know the sun's coming, but it doesn't rise yet because we're hitting the longest nights of the year. And that's where it is. They can just see glimmers of it. So what would this look like, Rob, on this Epiphany, to invite the congregation to share the glimmers of the dawn that is coming? Maybe you can't see the dawn yet, but what are the glimmers for new life and new possibility? And what would that look like to anybody? It doesn't matter if your church is thriving or your church might close its doors this year. There are still glimmers and things of hope. What a way to start the year, Rob, by inviting people to share those stories and glimmers of hope.
Yeah. Well, there's a element of, this time of year too, right? This is, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, this is when you might start noticing that it is getting longer, right? It's 2 weeks after
the
longest night. There is an element of, oh dear, that, like the dawn is a little bit later.
Rob, I lost you. Oh, you're back.
Oh, okay.
You froze there for a minute. You said it's at this time of year that you might notice, because you're right. We're talking the fourth Sunday or the first Sunday. We're in January, so that it's getting longer. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you might actually start noticing that the dawn is getting a little later or earlier, that the sun is staying out just a little bit longer. And there is something about the dawn light that is, it's different than sunset light. It's not, but it is. There's something about it that is just more hopeful. Like when the birds start to sing and these things start to happen. I wanted to, one of my favorite songs the last couple of years is "Living My Best Life" by Ben Rector. And there's a line where the whole thing is about living my best life, about growing older and realizing, my best life is just being with my wife and kids, right? It's not being a star. It's not being, I thought I was going to be a rock star, but my best life right now is a sort of singing head and shoulders, knees and toes, not, singing to sold out shows. And he says, one of the courses is, I'm living my best life. I wake up with the sunrise. It does not look a thing like I thought it would. And then he goes on, I've been getting my steps in and I sleep with my best friend. It's the best that it has been in a long time. I've living my best life. And I used this on Easter a couple of years ago, talking about new life and my own sort of resurrection and renaissance. But this idea of there's something special about waking up with the sunrise. It is more spectacular than you thought it would be. Almost every time, right? Like, especially as a night owl, I've seen a lot more sunsets than I have seen sunrises. And I think there's something beautiful about the dawn that is special, for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just so much hope. There's so much possibility. There's so much potential. And yeah, coming out of the night into that. So yeah, there's more in the show notes, friends. You can find a lot of that over at pulpitfiction.com. But right now we're going to switch on over to our wafer.
Now that's a tasty wafer.
That's right. Our wafer of the week is Ephesians, everybody's favorite book, Rob. Ephesians 3, 1 through 12. Rob, do you want to read that?
Not sure. This is why I, Paul, am a prisoner of Christ for you Gentiles. You've heard, of course, about the responsibility to distribute God's grace, which God gave to me for you, right? God showed me his secret plan in a revelation, as I mentioned briefly before. When you read this, you'll understand my insight into the secret plan about Christ. Earlier generations didn't know this hidden plan that God has now revealed to his holy apostles and prophets through the Spirit. This plan is that the Gentiles would be co-heirs and parts of the same body, and that they would share with the Jews in the promise of God in Christ Jesus through the gospel. I became a servant of the gospel because of the grace that God showed me through the exercise of his power. God gave his grace to me, the least of all God's people, to preach good news about the immeasurable riches of Christ to the Gentiles. God sent me to reveal the secret plan that had been hidden since the beginning of time by God, who created everything. God's purpose is now to show the rulers and powers in the heavens the many different varieties of his wisdom through the church. This was consistent with the plan he had from the beginning of time that he accomplished through Christ Jesus our Lord. In Christ, we have bold and confident access to God through faith in him.
Secret plan. I like that it's a secret. Secret.
So you should whisper the sermon.
Yes. Don't be suspicious. All right. So secret plan. Don't be suspicious. Don't be act suspicious. All right. The secret plan that we have here is, here's the short of it. What is the secret plan? The good news is for Jews and Gentiles. That's the secret plan. And that's the radical mystery that we have here. The secret radical mystery. Boom, done. Spoiler alert. It's for everybody. This works really well in what we were just talking about, Rob. You know, what you were saying about that universality that we have in the Isaiah passage. And frankly, for me too, as we were talking about this, I thought, so the secret plan is the good news is for weirdos too.
Right.
Weirdos from the East. They're part of the secret plan. People that are as far other as we can imagine, this good news is for them too, which then challenges the question of who's the weirdo in your midst? Who are the people whom you have decided are not part of the secret plan? Is it your neighbor who has his big MAGA hat out? Is it your other neighbor who's got brown skin and maybe you don't know what their immigration status is? Whatever it is it the Catholic Church next door that you've been fighting over parking for the last 40 years? Whatever those things are, whom in your vocal or inward or other, who's out of the secret plan? And why are we still keeping it a secret? I mean, this is good news. Yeah. So maybe the radical inclusive of God should be something that we can make less of a secret and just say, here's the plan. Good news for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it can just be a plan, not a secret plan. And God gave, and who's the weirdest? God gave his grace to me.
Yeah.
The least of all God's people. Right. And that's typical humble brag Paul, but like, this is, I can read that and say, yeah, even me. Right. And there's an element of that, the humility of grace that, the humility that is faith, right? That it's not, I haven't figured it out. I'm not your great leader. I'm not, I am your leader in some sense as a pastor and stuff, but at the same time, I'm just a guy struggling with this too, right? I'm trying to figure this all out too. And this plan shouldn't be secret, but feels that way because it's because of the barriers we put up, right? Because of these labels that we use and share. It feels like opening grace up to everybody seems like a top secret mission. Reminded of Jesus sending his disciples into the cities to find and look for conspirators, people who love peace, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't find them, just shake your dust off and go someplace else.
I thought we're supposed to call down fire, right? Fire,
right, exactly.
And brimstone,
yeah.
Smiting the
right, which is exactly what Rome would do, right? If they showed up in a city and people didn't come out, they would.
And it's what the disciples wanted to do, right? When they're like, Jesus, should we call down fire and murder the Samaritans?
No, shake the dust off your feet and move on. And this is, I mean, this is the frustrating part of these letters. I don't like Advent and Lent, the way they use the letters, right? Because if I'm going to do Paul's letters, they're units. They need to be dig into the letter, not just these proof texty paragraphs. But this does fit really, but at the same time, this does fit really well. This whole message of, it's for everybody. Who? What even so-and-so? Yes. Even people who ask stupid questions, right? That's the meme, right? It's for everybody.
Yeah. It's an interesting piece where you say, who is it revealed to? God gave his grace to me. It would be an interesting piece, this verse 8. God gave his grace to me, the least of all God's people, to preach the good news about the immeasurable riches of Christ to the Gentiles. It'd be an interesting piece to invite the congregation to just say, if you're preaching Ephesians, if you're like, nope, I love Ephesians and I'm going to do this and rocking this out this year. If I was preaching this, I would have, I think, the congregation read aloud, God gave his grace to me, least of all God's people, to preach the good news. Because that in and of itself is a powerful message. It starts with you. You are given God's unconditional grace. You are given God's inescapable love. And with that gift comes an invitation centered on God's hope in you, that you will preach the good news in word, thought, and deed. And you will preach it to everyone the sun touches. But that piece, more and more with folks in my congregation and in my community, that first piece, God gave his grace to me, the least of all God. If you feel the least, you're right at home with Paul. If you feel the least, you're right at home with Peter. This is exactly who God needs. So you can't say, well, that's for somebody else. That's for the pastor. That's for the social worker. That's for, nope. You are a recipient. You cannot run from God's grace. You cannot hide from God's love. And that grace and that love that are given to you so freely also compel you to this ministry of transformation.
And we need you.
And we need you. Yes.
Right. I mean, and that's verse 10, right? God's purpose is to show the power of the world through the many different varieties of his wisdom, right? Yeah. Through the church. The church, like the variety of the church is exactly what makes it powerful. That's exactly what makes it the church. So when you don't show up, when you're not a part of that, you're depriving the church of your variety of wisdom. And yes, you do have a variety of wisdom, like I know, I can do the sports metaphors and you can do the, the Broadway metaphors. I don't know. I mean, I know Broadway pretty well too, but like
Nerd metaphors.
right? Like you can do the Star Trek and I can do the Star Wars or whatever. Like, but more importantly, right? A church needs the variety, and you know what the church is missing, what God is missing when you're not there, is this ability to reach everyone, because your absence then is casting shade over a element that should be illuminated.
It reminds me, remember Michael Kinnaman used to talk about
absolutely.
this and would say, when you don't come to church, when people think about whether or not they're going to come to church or participate in something, they think, do I need to come to church today? What do I need from church today? But the very essence of the gospel isn't about what you need. It's about what your neighbor needs. And so the question is not, do you need to come to church today, but who needs you to be at church today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who needs you? And it can be church, it can be anything. Who needs you to show up? Just like the Magi showed up. Who needs you to show up? I don't think the Magi had any idea when they were giving gold and frankincense and myrrh that, oh, well, Herod is definitely going to murder. They might have thought Herod was sketchy and all of those things. Mary didn't even know that she needed the Magi to show up until they did. Often the people that we need most, we don't even know to ask. And if we think in our Rob, I think of how many times somebody's shown up or I've gotten a hug or something and I didn't have any clue I needed it until the moment I saw that person, until the moment they said the right thing. And then I realized the desert that I was walking in what a glass of water that they were, that how desperately I needed that peace. And so that's the other question. And then that's what the gospel compels us. It's not what you need. It's what does the community need? Who needs you that will be lessened because of your absence?
Have you ever been so hungry or so busy that you sit down and you don't feel like you're hungry, and then you take a bite and then you realize how hungry you are? I didn't even realize how hungry I was until I had this bite of food. And I feel like that's community. That's church. That's, the variety of wisdoms is I didn't even realize how much I needed this until I was there. But and what we're talking about is sort of the opposite. Like you're the food for somebody else. Like you had no idea how much you needed that until that person showed up. Yeah.
Which, by the way, great connection to Communion Sunday.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes so, just
yeah.
Preachers, the things you can do with that connection. Yeah, absolutely. Friends, a lot more in the show notes. Go check that out. Pulpitfiction.com. Well, Rob, what we didn't say at the beginning is Happy New Year.
Yeah.
This is 2026. This episode is for 2026, which is just wild to think about. But we want to thank all of you for being a part of the Pulpit Fiction community over this last year. And if this is the very first time you're listening to us, well, welcome to the Pulpit Fiction community this year, especially if this is your first episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. You can find our home and webpage at pulpitfiction.com. That's pulpitfiction.com, where you can find past shows and exegetical notes and links to a lot of the resources we use. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Pulpit Fiction. We're on X at Pulpit F Podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, wherever you listen. Leave us a review. That helps folks find the show. You can always email us, show@pulpitfiction.us, or support the show by going to pulpitfiction.com/support.
We're going to take a break from the live shows for a little while. The next one will be Wednesday, January 7th. We're going to be recording a not so live show in the meantime. But you can watch all the live shows on YouTube. They're cataloged. Facebook Live deletes them 30 days later, but you can watch live on Facebook Live as well, usually at 1:30 Central on Wednesday afternoons. All episodes, again, are saved at YouTube channel at youtube.com/@pulpitfiction. Please click like on this episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really could use your help in building up that subscription list. Even if you're not a YouTube user, we'd love for you to go and subscribe anyway. Thank you to Scott Fletcher for the voice bumpers, Nikolai Heidelis for the transition music, and a big thanks again to a friend of the show, Brian O'Dean, for the closing song. Please have a blessed week.
to say it's time to go, but it happens every time, you know. So now you're free to go about your day. We've heard the word in voice and song, we've wondered and we've laughed along, so go and preach the good news on your way. This is the Pulpit Fiction Podcast for preachers and seekers and Bible geeks. This is the Pulpit Fiction Podcast. We'll see you back next week.